Have you ever felt alive, but not really living? As if your days repeated themselves like a blank page that no one, not even you, dared to write on? Lina felt that. Every day. She woke up with her body, but her soul stayed in bed. She was 47, and many of her dreams had been abandoned long ago. But what hurt the most was realizing that, without noticing, she had also abandoned herself. Her house was quiet. The kettle whistled, and she just watched the steam rise, as if watching time slip through her fingers. "Today I begin," she murmured, staring at her reflection in the kitchen glass door with eyes that had forgotten their light. But the day passed, just like all the others. Lina wasn't weak. She wasn't lazy. She had simply grown used to not moving. Life had become a quiet waiting, but she didn't know what she was waiting for. Maybe an answer, maybe strength from heaven, maybe the perfect moment to begin, but that moment never came. And she didn't realize that every day spent still was a step backward. Every breath without action plucked another petal from the garden of her own soul. Until one ordinary afternoon, in an unimportant place, she heard a stranger telling a fable. And that changed everything. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was painfully true. And if you stay here with me, I will tell you that same fable. But let me warn you, it's not easy to hear. It may hurt. It may touch wounds you've tried to hide. But if you listen to it until the end, maybe, like Lina, you will wake up inside. Because some words are not just spoken, they are felt, they are lived. And this is one of them. Lina lived in a small apartment on the 5th floor of a building without life, without color, without soul. The window faced a gray street where people hurried by, yet none seemed to truly see one another. Her mornings were made of silence, a random radio station playing, her coffee growing cold, and her eyes lost in nowhere, or somewhere deep inside her. Sometimes she spent hours watching the clothes spin in the washing machine. That cycle, fill, spin, empty, mirrored her existence, a repetition without meaning. She didn't cry, she didn't smile, she didn't argue, she didn't dream. She simply existed. She did the bare minimum to survive, worked in an office where no one knew her full name, ate alone at a simple restaurant, went home, turned on the TV, and fell asleep on the couch. To the world, everything seemed normal. But inside, Lina felt she was dying slowly. She saw others changing their lives, achieving dreams, posting motivational messages online. But everything felt distant, like another universe. Deep down, a dark thought echoed. My time has passed. Now it's just bills, days, and the end. That was the most dangerous thought. Not sadness, resignation. And resignation carries a silent poison. It kills dreams without making a sound. It dims the soul. It steals life while you're still breathing. Every day she said, "One day I'll change." But that day never came. And so, week after week, her life darkened inside without her even noticing. Until the day she heard that story, that fable, told by a stranger, in a simple voice. But it felt as if it had been written exactly for her. And maybe for you too. It was an ordinary Tuesday. One of those days when the world runs on autopilot. Lina stood in line at the bank, an envelope in hand, exhaustion stamped on her face. The air was heavy, the AC barely working, everything painfully slow. Then, from the waiting bench nearby, an old lady began to speak. Not to Lina, to the young woman beside her. Her voice was soft, calm, but it carried something that held attention. She said, "Do you know the fable of the man who stopped walking?" The young woman shook her head. Lina leaned slightly without meaning to. She didn't know why, but her chest listened. The lady continued. There was once a man who lived in a village where everyone walked. They walked to work. They walked toward their dreams. They walked even without direction, but they walked. One day that man grew tired, and he told himself, "I'll stop just for today." So he sat down on the side of the road. At first, people passed by and asked, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" He smiled. "I'm just resting." But days passed, and he didn't get up. People began to forget he was there, and slowly the road covered him. Dust settled, grass grew around his feet, birds built nests on his shoulders. Then one day, he tried to stand up, but he couldn't. His body had grown accustomed to stillness. His legs no longer responded. His voice was too weak to call for help. His tears fell on dry soil that no longer absorbed life. And there he remained, alive, but buried within himself. Silence fell. But Lina felt as if something had pierced her chest with the accuracy of someone who knew exactly where the wound was. She closed her eyes for a moment and understood. She was the man in the fable, not sitting by a road, but by the edge of her own life. And the terrifying truth was, if she didn't rise soon, it might become too late. Her number was called, but the realization that fell upon her was not from the bank. It was from life. After that afternoon, Lina returned home different. Something had shifted inside her. Not hope yet, but discomfort. A stirring. That night, she opened an old notebook filled with abandoned ideas, dreams she once dared to have. As she flipped through the pages, her eyes stopped on a sentence written years before. "If I don't try, I'll never know what I could have been." Lina cried softly and decided, "I will try." The next day, she woke early, put on clothes she hadn't worn in years, tied her hair with purpose, and stepped outside. She visited the local cultural center, hoping art classes still existed. "They ended a long time ago, ma'am," the receptionist said, not looking up. "Ma'am." That word stung more than it should. She went to a craft store, held brushes that felt like old memories, but the prices scared her. She tried enrolling in an online course. The connection dropped. She tried drawing at home. Her hands trembled. Her mind blocked. Nothing flowed. "Who am I trying to fool?" she whispered. Outside, the world ran. Inside, she tripped on herself. No one waited for her. No one reached out. Everyone else seemed far ahead, and she felt stuck at the starting line. For a moment, she considered giving up. She sat on the couch, stared at the ceiling, just like before. But something inside her screamed, a faint echo from the fable. If you don't walk, you die inside. And for the first time in years, Lina felt fear. Not fear of failing, fear of returning to the emptiness. That day, the real battle began, between the habit of quitting and the desire to live. That night, Lina didn't turn on the TV. Her phone stayed face down, lights off. She sat by the window listening to the distant hum of cars, watching windows lit with lives that seemed fuller than hers. She thought of everything she tried and failed. But most of all, she thought of everything she never tried. And that hurt the most. In the silence, she remembered her mother. 7 years gone, simple, wise, with hands worn by life and words that hit like truth. She remembered telling her mother she wanted to be an artist. Her mother smiled, placed a blank page before her, and said, "Then draw, my child. The world won't hand you pencils. You're the one who must take them." Back then, it felt like a game. Now, it felt like a revelation. Life doesn't hand you dreams. Life hands you time, and what you do with it is your part. Then a truth sank deep inside her. No one is coming to rescue you. If you don't rise, no one can live for you. Hard, painful, but liberating. She didn't need to start big, or perfect, or ready. She took a blank sheet, folded it, wrote in big shaky letters, "I can still bloom." She taped it to her bathroom mirror. Then she opened her mother's old sewing box. Inside were scraps of fabric, threads, buttons, pieces of life. She didn't know how to sew, but she knew something new could grow there. Because sometimes, what you need the most is already with you, just waiting for you to wake up. The next morning, Lina woke before her alarm. The sky was gray, but inside, presence. She drank her coffee in silence, and instead of blaming herself for the past, she whispered gratitude for the chance to still be here. She picked up one of her mother's needles and, with shaky hands, began stitching two old scraps of fabric. The seam was crooked, the thread tangled. But it was a beginning. Every stitch was a prayer, every attempt a small act of faith. She didn't want fame, or recognition, or applause. She just wanted to feel alive again. And every little creation, imperfect, humble, was proof that she was coming back. She returned to the cultural center, proposed an idea, teaching sewing to other women who had stopped walking inside. She wasn't a teacher, but she understood immobility. She understood silence. She understood giving up, and that was enough. Over time, other women came, each bringing their wounds, their pauses, their blank pages, and together they began to stitch, threads and tears, laughter and memories, and Lina realized she hadn't lost time. She had been prepared. The suffering wasn't wasted. The waiting wasn't pointless. It was soil. And now, it was time to bloom. Today, Lina still lives in the same apartment, the same street, the same window. But she no longer sees life with the same eyes. When the morning sun slips through the curtains, she feels gratitude, not because everything changed around her, but because something changed within her. The note on the bathroom mirror remains. I can still bloom. But now it's not a reminder. It's a truth. Lina discovered there is no right age to begin again. No time so lost that it cannot be honored with new choices. She learned you don't need to do much. You only need to do it truly, with heart, with soul. Life isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about creating movement, even afraid, even unsure, even imperfect. Today, when she meets someone lost, someone drifting, someone dimmed inside, she tells them the fable of the man who stopped walking and says, I used to be him, but I'm not anymore. And maybe she's telling that fable to you now, because deep down, this story isn't just hers. It's mine. It's yours. It's all of ours. The pain of wasting time is real, but the power to begin again is just as real. So if something stirred inside you, if you saw yourself in Lina, don't ignore it. Maybe today is your day to rise. Even if it's just one step, even if it's only an intention, the important thing is not returning to sleep inside, because you too can still bloom. As long as there is time, there is a chance, and God is still calling. If this story touched you, don't leave without taking your first step. Write in the comments, I choose to rise, or I can still bloom. Declare it, own it, begin it. And if your heart is asking for help, for guidance, for direction, stay close to this channel. Aqui, você nunca caminha sozinho. Here, God meets you where you are and walks with you toward where you can become. Your journey back to yourself starts now. One step, one prayer, one breath at a time.